there was one person who I really wanted to talk to from South Korea. I forgot the name. Nixel, Nixel.
Hmm.
Um, and they do this really cool artwork. They make these. They're an illustrator, um, and they have these like 360 drawings.
Oh,
Really cool stuff. I don't know how they do it exactly, but you could like pan around the whole picture. And they had one of like the Spider Verse, so it's all different, Spider Mans that all over. And they had a really cool one. It was they called it the multiverse subway car.
oh, the
And
one is.
so you seen that one? It's
I
so
seen that one.
cool. That was it
I
was
seen that
so
one. There is a
cool.
lot of like Easter eggs that you can
Yeah,
see. You
yeah.
zoom in, you can see.
Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, but it's funny because I found a lot of people, again, especially in 3D, are in Brazil. I don't know why, but I found, yeah, a lot
I
of
mean,
Brazilians.
there is a guy, a famous guy, is working in. I think he's Santa Monica. I mean, maybe wrong right now, but his name
Hmm.
is Rafael Grassetti, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah, for
Right?
sure. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
and he's from Brazil, and I know he has like a school or he teaches there
yeah,
people because he
yeah,
wants to help them out. But
yeah.
besides him, to be honest, I'm trying to. I mean, there is another concept artist. I don't know him personally, from Colombia, which whose name I forgot right now,
Uh-huh.
actually. But I think he's in Singapore right now,
Hmm.
and he works mostly on theme parks and stuff like that.
Oh,
But
cool.
yeah, but to be honest, most of the people I know are from, I mean, that are in the same field that I am.
Yeah,
Are from the States or Europe
yeah.
and Australia actually. So,
Interesting. Yeah,
mm,
I've had some, Australia. I spoke to Leila Viscu. She's in New Zealand. There's one guy I reached out to who's a 2D illustrator. Really, really good stuff. I mean, he makes really cool illustrations, like a lot of superhero illustrations. And I reached out to him to come on, and he's based out of Poland, I believe.
mhm.
But he replied, he's like, "Oh, I don't really do this professionally. I just do this as a hobby. I just love to draw." He's really good, and he said, "Yeah, I work. I think he's like in like a coal mine or something like that. Like he works like in some job. He just does his like these illustrations for fun. But he's really, really talented. Really excellent work.
Yeah, there are those cases where people are insanely good. You think they're working on like, and they're just
Yeah,
doing it as a hobby. They
yeah,
are
yeah. And
completely
he has the
different
art
things.
station. His art station is full of stuff, and again, really good illustrations of X-Men and a lot of Marvel and DC stuff. And I was really surprised. But listen,
I think when you start doing it as a job, it loses that
yeah, for sure. Some people definitely have
charisma.
that. Definitely,
Yeah.
some people
So
have that where it's hard to kind of strike the balance between you know professional and personal work, and kind of keeping the magic alive when you're doing, especially because when you're doing it as a job, you you don't necessarily get to do what you want to be doing. Unless you're really well established in your career and you kind of have the where we say chutzpah, like the gall, I guess, to kind of say I'm only going to take jobs that I really want to take, which there
yeah,
are people who can do that, but to be able to do that, you need to like already kind of really be established,
yeah,
but yeah, like if you're starting out and you're kind of trying to build up your career, you're kind of just taking whatever job comes your way, and
exactly.
you're doing things that you really don't want to be doing, but you got to pay the bills, like that definitely can be a drag. Have
Yeah.
you ever experienced that in your work?
I mean, I think like because I mean I have I mean 2 years and a half of experience, and when I first started, I have a different I don't know how different likes regarding concept art, and then now I have completely different ones. So I think for me, maybe being lucky that I don't stuff that I like. I
Yeah.
mean, also I believe that if you have a portfolio full of like I don't know fantasy, you're gonna get fantasy work, right?
Right, for sure.
So my portfolio has kind of like a shooter, kind of a bit of sci-fi, so I've been able to do that stuff.
Nice, nice.
Uh, but I do know some people that, yeah, like top in their tier, I mean, top in their career, and they
Yeah.
can, choose, I want to
Right.
do this, you
Right.
know?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's different. Yeah, yeah. There are people with like 20 years on this, and that's
Right. Right. Yeah. You
next
have to. You
level.
have to be. You have to be really like well established and really have the. You get to the point where people are seeking you out, not the other way around. That's
Exactly. I
kind
mean,
of
yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of like the goal for some people that want to maybe pursue freelance, right? Because
Right.
that's,
For sure. For sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm curious to hear a little bit about your career because so I've noticed from your portfolio, it's a lot of environment concept design. That's kind of your specialty.
Yes, I will say environments and props because I like them.
Oh,
I like them
cool.
then. Yeah.
Very nice. What is it about environments that you enjoy? Because I've met a few environment artists, and for me, environments are very cool, but it's a very different approach than say like characters or standalone or even props. What is it about environments that like really does it for you?
Oh, I think it's because I was really into keyframes, and that's the
Mm,
main thing I like actually got the false idea, not false idea, but like a lot of people get into like, oh, I want to be a concept artist because they
yeah,
see stuff on ArtStation, but that's not actual concept art. And it was
yeah.
my case when I was, before deciding to study concept art. And then I saw all this cool stuff, and I said, okay, I want to go into keyframes, and then I put my effort into that, and then that transition into doing environments.
Mm,
Because
mm-hmm.
keyframes is more niche, I think, but environments are cool. Like you can design, I don't know. It's like I really like. I see this more as a design rather than art. So it's more like, okay, I have this level. I had to convey this feeling or whatever. I need to design these elements. I need to put this stuff like that.
Yeah,
And yeah, and props as well. Props are really fun because you have something really small, and then you can make. I don't know. It's I would say it's a bit easier than an environment because an environment is something there's a
right,
lot of stuff. But
right.
a prop it's like a singular thing that is. The props are really fun to do. So
Yeah. You enjoy props more than environments?
I would say it depends, but yes, I
Mm,
would say because they're usually like more straightforward to do.
yeah, for sure. No,
Uh,
environments, you got to think on a much, and obviously you're dealing on a much bigger scale. So you kind of have to think in a much wider kind of range, which is definitely fun and exciting, but also, at least for me, it's more challenging also, and not challenging in like a good way. For me, like for me, it's like challenging in a frustrating way.
oh
Like
yes, yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But it's very cool. I mean, like environments are obviously super important. You need to have a good environment. That really makes or breaks whatever it is, a game, a movie, whatever it is that you're
Yes.
dealing with. So are you primarily in, you said like shooter games, that's kind of your
Uh,
go-to?
yes, I mean, I started working. I think actually the first freelance gig I did was something more fantasy, which I had no idea why they asked me to do that because they
Uh-huh.
clearly saw my portfolio that I had no fantasy,
Uh-huh.
like I mean more like medieval rather than fantasy. And then it's like, and then I did like an actual, let's say, shooter thingy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that game was canceled, so can't
Mm-hmm.
show any of that. But yeah, that's how it started. I think I think also a lot of people, I don't know, The Last of Us, the game, like
Yeah.
the people behind them, they made like really realistic environments and stuff like that. And a lot of people got that idea of like, oh, we gotta do this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I
Mm-hmm.
actually got into making those realistic images. I mean, I don't know, like the one that you were saying, right? That I show
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I like shooters because I used to play a lot of Call of Duty and Battlefield. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
mean,
it was gravitated towards. How'd you
yes.
get into it initially? Like, did you go to school or you kind of just you
Ooh, that's an
self-taught?
interesting one. That's an interesting one because I actually studied illustration before in
Mm.
Spain. When I was doing illustration, I mean, I didn't know what I wanted to do, to be honest, before that. I I finished like high school when I was like 19. I mean, high
Okay.
school, like A levels or like, it depends on the country where you are. It's
Yeah.
the 12 years of education, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I wanted to do because I was like, as a part-time, let's say, as a side job, I was like fixing PCs, doing like IT.
Mm.
Uh, but I was really like demanding, I don't know, I was really stressed about that. And then I said, you know what? I don't write doing illustration, I mean drawings, because I have a YouTube channel that we can talk about it. Like it's like a joke among my friends because I hit everything related to that YouTube channel. But I said, okay, let's do it. Let's give it a try. Let's study illustration, and I studied illustration for a couple years. After it's like I don't know how you call it, high national diploma in the UK,
Okay.
but I did it in Spain. And then when I was in my first year towards the end, I saw a video about a concept art challenge made by the Island Art Department, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh wait a minute, what is this? Is this
Mm.
like what is this thing that I'm looking
Yeah.
at, right?
Yeah.
And that's the first how do you say proximity or like it was the first time I saw actual concept art.
Ah.
And then I
Okay.
was like, okay, I gotta study this. I really like this because
Uh-huh.
while I was studying illustration, they didn't allow me to do anything on the digital, and everything had
Mm.
to be like, and
Traditional. Yeah.
yeah, and I wasn't that good at it because I mean, you don't like something, you're not gonna push it. So I
Right.
focus more like sketching and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I saw this ad. I mean, I looked it up. Okay, where can I study concept art? And I saw
Yeah.
these couple universities. I think one was I don't remember. It was one of the European countries. I think
Uh-huh.
Central European. The other one was in the UK. And I said, okay, there's an open day next week. And I told my parents a couple weeks. I mean, yeah, when I saw the ad, right? I told my parents, and they said, I mean, go have a look, right? And then I went
Yeah.
there, and I went to an open day in the UK. You gotta know that my English back then, I failed English. Okay, my last year, so I had to push it. Like
Uh-huh.
it was alright, but it wasn't that good. So I could
Yeah.
understand, but like I don't know, I managed to talk through it, and then I really like the course. I mean, I say, yeah, let's apply. And then I was never a really good student at school,
Yeah.
actually. And so I have barely the minimum grade to get in. And I was, okay, let's give it a go. I apply, and then a year later, while I still studying illustration, I got the acceptance letter, and it's like, let's go.
Nice.
And
Wow.
and then I went to and I went to study. So it was through actually, let's say, education to university. But I did illustration before, which helped me
Yeah.
set some basis, right?
Yeah.
Um, which that's another topic because would I say did I learn a lot while I was uni? Question mark. I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
think I learned mostly like maybe 3D, but no actual design skills, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame the university. I mean, I think that course was really new at the time. Like they
Mm-hmm.
try, and when something is new, you need to, experiment and see how that works,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Absolutely.
So yeah, we had a bit of complaints regarding like the actual teaching, but I don't regret going there. Definitely not. I will go again because
Yeah.
it set the basis that I needed to understand what concept that was, and also to meet the people, my
Right.
friends right
Right.
now, that we
Right.
became like, let's say, we got jobs and stuff like that. So I
Yeah.
got the friends that push me to carry on.
Yeah. Yeah. I was having
Um,
a conversation with Solomon Blair. And one thing that he was saying was because he's taught at an art center in Pasadena,
mhm.
and I was talking to him and I asked him because there's kind of this debate, I guess, about do you need to go to school or not in today's day and age, right? And some people tell you no, you don't really need to go to school because you can learn everything you want on YouTube. There's so many resources for free online. But his perspective, which I thought was really interesting, was that he very much recommends going to these schools, like an art center or some of the European schools, because you are put in an environment where you're surrounded by other people who are very good, right? And no matter how good you are, there's always going to be somebody better, and all the
Yeah.
best people are going to be in these schools. And so when you put yourself in this environment, it's almost like a pressure cooker where you're surrounded by the best, and so it pushes yourself and you challenge yourself, and it really helps you really hone those skills. Whereas if you just are watching YouTube videos to learn, you don't necessarily have as much of that pressure. And then you could say to yourself, oh, if I don't remember how to do something, I can always kind of rewatch that YouTube video. Whereas the school, even if you don't gain a lot from the actual school itself, the environment is a huge factor.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, and I think it depends on the person. Also, it depends on the school. Like our center
Right,
is, I mean, it's the top, right?
right, right.
And there are some universities where, like, let's say there is no when people apply, they just take anyone, or
Yeah,
like they
yeah.
don't look actually to the portfolio. So like in my case in my uni, the average person there have like really low art skills, which
Mm-hmm.
actually was a bit like a boomer for me.
Mm.
But I'm not saying like I was really good, or like it's just like
Right.
the feeling, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But there were like some people like I don't know, out of 100, there were like three, four, five people that were really good, and that's enough to push you.
yeah.
So I could learn from that stuff, right? But I would say there's two different type of people. Like at university, you learn discipline and you learn to kind of receive instructions, which is really important for the job, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can learn by yourself at home, be self-taught, but you need to have a lot of discipline, you
Right.
know. And then I don't know, sit down and do it, right? And that's
Right.
the thing. Like a lot of people struggle, especially I think people that are artists or identify as artists are like
Yeah.
we sometimes are a bit like I don't know, we
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
A
Our
little
brain
more
is like
scatterbrained and
yeah, yeah,
yeah, for
yeah.
sure, absolutely.
So I will say, yeah, it depends. Like I know in my case, as I said, it's not like I don't like the university. I really like the university, and I say I will go again, but I don't think that pushed me like in terms of skills that they were teaching
Mm.
me.
Yeah,
But it was
yeah.
more like the surroundings, like the
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think probably the most important thing is the people that you meet, and especially in the industry, right? You need to know a lot of people.
Right.
You need to be a bit extroverted, or maybe force yourself a little bit,
Right.
because is that how people get jobs, and is that how you learn? Like some people
Right.
mentor me for free when I was starting. I have a really good friend, like a close friend, that he said, okay, I'm gonna, because he was way better than me, and he said, okay, I'm gonna teach you. So like that kind of stuff, like helping others. And like
Yeah.
for example, me, now that I have more experience and stuff like that, right now I'm teaching some people, like friends and stuff
Nice.
like that. So it's like a circle of
Yeah.
like feeding and like I mean giving and taking,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I will say, yeah, definitely you can be self-taught, but you have the opportunity to go to one of these places, right? I mean, go.
Yeah.
I mean, like also depends of your financial situation, right? Like
Right,
let's say in
right.
my case I come from like a humble background, so I could go to study to the UK not because I had money, but because at the time it was still part of the EU, and there was like this like a loan that you could apply to. You didn't
Mm,
you need to show anything. Just say, okay,
mm-hmm,
I want to apply to and I have this Spanish passport, and they will give you the loan for the tuition. Because in the UK, the universities are like 10K,
mm-hmm,
even if it's public, it's still like 10K a
mm-hmm.
year. And the States, I think, is like, I don't know, our center is like 150, right? Or
Yeah,
something like that.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So, and there's, I mean, in Germany, I think it's free. In some countries, it's free. So it
Mm-hmm.
all depends on your
Right,
financial
right.
situation.
For sure. Also, I gotta say, like, it's really, I commend you that you really stepped out of your comfort zone to do that. You didn't really speak the language, and you're going to a
Oh,
new
yeah.
country. Like, that's really cool that you kind of pushed yourself in that way, and it seems like it really paid off.
I mean, definitely. I mean, I mean, also, I was, I mean, I don't know. I was born in Colombia, right? So I moved
Mm-hmm.
to Spain when I was like 13, 14. So I already have like that feeling like, I don't know, like I know I can do the jump. Also, when I was in
Mm-hmm.
Colombia, because of my parents' jobs, we moved like every year. So I
Uh-huh.
have to like, I mean, I was actually talking to my parents the other day to calculate how many times we moved, and it
Uh-huh.
was roughly almost every year that we moved.
Wow. So you're already
So
used to kind of being in new environments and kind of,
yes.
you kind of,
Uh,
it gave you a good foundation to work on.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I mean, I thought like, oh, more people are like me, but I like, when I went to uni in the UK, right, I told some friends like here, that are in Spain, I told them, oh, why don't you come to study, and none of them like said like, okay, no, 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 because they
Yeah.
say, oh, I don't speak the language well, or like, what if, what if, what if,
Right, right.
and I mean, I understand that, I don't blame them, it's like a big step, going
Yeah.
to a country where you don't have family, and then you are not like super fluent in the language,
Right.
but it worked out, so.
Yeah, yeah. Did you learn English growing up, or did you kind of pick it up in school
Oh,
and then in
In
university?
in Colombia, they teach you English in the schools, if as far as I remember, and in Spain as well. But that doesn't mean that the level is like
Right,
super high.
right.
So I have to. When I knew I was accepted to the university, what I did is like there's this TV show that I really liked called How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, sure.
So I watched that like 4 times.
Uh-huh.
First, in English with Spanish subtitles, then again with English subtitles, and then with English without the subtitles.
Yeah.
And that in a year helped me a lot. So when I went there, I could understand the classes, like
Wow,
the.
wow. It's like homework but fun.
Yes, I mean, of course, I never actually. I think like because when you're taught English since you're a child, you kind of have like some knowledge, grammar and stuff
Yeah,
like that. So it's not like
yeah.
from zero.
Right.
But the main issue was talking and understanding people
Yeah,
from the UK because they have the a strong accent,
yeah,
right? I mean, it's the
yeah.
British, the accent, right? Like,
Right, right, right.
but yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I've met a lot of people who English is not their first language, but they learned English from watching TV and watching movies,
Yes.
and it's
Or,
it's a very common theme I've
or
seen.
YouTube as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, it's very cool. I really, I can't give you enough credit. It's really important, I think, in general in
Yes.
life to like push yourself out of your comfort zone. And obviously it's not easy, but it shows in the success. Like the people who do push themselves out of the comfort zone are going out and becoming concept designers versus other people who don't. Maybe they want to be, but if you
Yes.
don't go in and kind of take those risks, then you
Es-
don't get to reap the rewards.
Especially this career that, I mean,
Yeah,
concept art is really competitive. There is not many jobs.
yeah,
There's a really good people out there, so it's really tricky to like do the,
yeah, yeah,
break in, right? But that's what you need to do this type of stuff. Like right
yeah.
now in my position, like let's say I was willing to move, I wanted to learn the language and all this stuff, and that helped me, to start getting my first freelance and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's
How long have
it's
you
a
been
tough.
working professionally?
2 years and a half, I
Okay.
think. Yeah, 2 years and a half. I started after uni. I took a year to take mentorships because I felt like I needed to actually get
Yeah.
like education. So I got a mentorship from I don't know. There's this big concept artist called Yamaji Revive. I took a
Okay.
mentorship with him, and then there is another school based in the States, but they do online called Brainstorm, and I took one with them, and then personal projects. And that got me enough to start getting freelance. I think it was July 2022, I think, when I started,
Hmm.
and I graduated in 2021. So that's when I first started getting freelance, and then after some time, I applied for a position in a company in the UK, and then I got a full-time
Nice.
job there. Yeah, yeah,
So it's a game company or what?
yeah. It's a video game company. I
Nice.
mean, I cannot say the games because like
Yeah, yeah.
But like, yeah, and I was working in that company until last summer because then I quit because I wanted to focus again on my portfolio because
Mm.
I mean, this is more like personal. I really want to try to get a job in the European countries that I like.
Mm-hmm.
And I was living in the UK, everything was fine. Company, I mean,
Yeah.
I had no problem. Like, good
Yeah.
company. I mean, not bad salary and all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
But like, I really wanted to try to move to another country. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying
Yeah.
UK is bad. It depends of you. Like, of
Right.
course, I
Right.
I may have to go back, right? Like, because of the industry and how things are going, you cannot be too picky. But I said, I have the opportunity right now. I have the savings. I have the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I want to push and then try to get a job because the problem with also the career of concept art is like all the stuff that you do, you cannot show. Like it's mostly NDA, and most of the projects, all the projects that I worked on, are canceled except one.
Yeah.
As far as
Yeah.
I know, or they've been changed, right?
Yeah.
And so you cannot show any of that stuff on your portfolio. And
Right.
then you gotta push your portfolio. You want to change career. So let's say I wanted to change company. So I wanted to show my actual skills of 2 years and a half because when I first got my portfolio, I mean my job, those skills are outdated, right? It's been two
Right.
years out outdated. So I need to now spend some time, update my portfolio, and start applying again because that's how the cycle works.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's an issue actually of people right now. Let's say because there's been massive layoffs and stuff like that because the whole economy worldwide,
Yeah.
not just in games. So there's issue with people that they've been in the company for like 10 years and stuff like that, and they never updated their portfolio. And when you see their portfolio, they don't even hit the junior level nowadays,
Right.
So
Even though they have the skills and
yes,
they do have, they're on a much higher level, but if you're not updating your portfolio, it's just
exactly.
doesn't show. Yeah.
Exactly, and if
Yeah.
you don't have unless I mean, there are some people that like, let's say they have like big IPs in their back, like in their CV, you
Right.
say, oh, I shipped this IP or whatever. But for mid people, I mean, for senior people that, yeah, I mean, in general, like that don't
Yeah.
update the portfolio, they're gonna struggle to transition.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh,
Well, so what's kind of looking ahead? What are some of your like goals for the future? Like, what are you trying to get into now?
still concept art,
Yeah.
but like I really wanna change country.
Hmm.
I mean, maybe it's because I used to move so much that
Yeah.
like I was in the UK for 6 years, and I was thinking if I stay another year, I'm probably gonna settle in this country, and I don't wanna. So I
Hmm.
said like I would like to go to another country, maybe learn a third language,
So is
or
that is
try.
that the is that your main motivation? Is just for the sake of moving? I said it's not so much changing companies or changing
Mhm.
not specialties, but like it's your main motivation is that you just want a new location.
Oh yes, I mean yeah, I mean I was happy in my previous company, like we're
Yeah.
working on cool stuff, and I could do the job, and I think it gets to a point where like I think it's like the stuff that you have in your portfolio is way more polished and finished than the actual work that you do because it's
Hmm.
quite fast-paced and usually for personal
Yeah.
projects you have more time. So
Yeah.
it's not let's say in terms of skills, but more like I mean also when I work in I mean again I don't want to say my company didn't have like a cool IP or whatever, but like I want to work or try to work in cool games or like if I like the idea, right? I mean me being picky, but if let's say because I give myself some time to do this and then start again like properly I don't know like let's say okay I gotta move back to the UK because there's a lot of jobs in the UK so I give myself some time to push that but I don't know no I don't think everyone is in that position to do that type of stuff. It's
Yeah.
risky as well, but
Yeah,
I mean
for
I've
sure.
taken risks before and I'd rather be more happy personally than
Yeah.
like to stay there in a company because it's safe and whatever.
Right. Right.
And I mean, I really like Europe. I mean the European countries, right? And the UK is nice, but the main issue I had was the weather as well. And I live in the
Mm.
north. I live 1 year in London, but I live as well in the north, like Manchester, that area.
Yeah.
And that was very paying like a tool on me, like, oh, I need to, I need to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I was just like, if it was like this last summer when I said, okay, I gotta
Gotta
move
change it
out.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
quit. I told my boss, I mean, my bosses, I said, sorry, like, and we finished in really good terms. They even mentioned that if I won, I mean, they can take me back in. But like,
Hmm.
I think like I wanna try to, stay in the. I mean, staying in Spain where I am right now, it will be amazing. But like, the
Yeah.
reality is that there's not many
The
jobs for
industry
what
is not
I.
so much there.
No, there is. I think that right now is booming is the industry that is moving is the mobile game industry because I've been to some
Yeah.
events and I talked to some people, and the mobile game industry is booming. But like the stuff I do, no, like there's like
Yeah.
one company, but
Yeah. I
like
find it interesting that the whole mobile game industry it's huge and like it's funny because I don't know for me in my experience as a consumer not even as a professional I find the mobile game industry in general seems to be like lower quality than what's being put out for consoles, right? Like AAA games,
Yes.
right? And I don't know if that's changing or what, but what you find in mobile games, is just, I don't know. It's more obviously you're dealing with different machines, so obviously you can't get as sophisticated as you can with a PlayStation or an Xbox or a PC. But it's funny that it's such a huge industry now.
It is.
Mobile games, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I could be totally naive, but I just don't know who's consuming mobile games so much. Is everybody playing mobile games, or is it?
Oh, I was gonna say, pretty much everyone has a phone, right?
Right.
So,
right.
and when you are on your bus and waiting for the bus or in the bus, public transport, I see people playing games, and I think, probably what I'm gonna say is wrong, but wrong in terms of not accurate information, but I think most of these games are not directly to maybe young people, but maybe adults. Adults
young adults.
Yeah, younger adults and a bit older, because you see, for example, my mom plays this game called it's like Candy Crush and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And I see people playing those games that are casual games that you don't need to open a session.
That's true.
Yeah, you just do play 2 minutes and finish, right?
Right.
And
yeah, I know a big one that I got into for a little while. It was like a Clash of Clans, but specifically I was playing Clash Royale. That's a big one for sure. I guess that's right. It's a very large IP, and that is a mobile game, but those are very few and far between, I think. Again, I could be totally wrong because I don't have my ear to the ground so much with mobile games, but that's just from my impression. I'm always amazed at how much ads there are for mobile games. Every time I open up YouTube, Instagram, anything, I'm constantly getting mobile game ads, and it's it's so funny to me. But again, maybe that's where the industry is headed, because like you're saying, everyone has an iPhone or an Android. Everyone has a phone.
A phone, yeah.
And,
sorry.
Yeah. And so you're sitting, like you're saying, you're at a bus stop, you're in a waiting room, whatever. It's you pull out a game, you play whatever, Candy Crush or Clash of Clans or any other kind of new game, and I wonder how much space there is in that field. I don't know. Again,
it's growing quite a lot, but as far as I know, of course, again, it doesn't have the same budgets as some AAA, right, or AA,
right.
because it's smaller stuff. It has less detail because it's a smaller screen,
right.
And also, what I was gonna mention earlier before I forgot, they're porting now really AAA games into phones as well. So you have a powerful phone, right? You can play. I think that the Resident Evil 2 or one of those games was ported.
Oh yeah.
And it did really well. I think it made good money. So the other thing that some companies are doing is okay, they're porting now their big IPs that can be played on a phone, and then people are which is good.
Yeah. I had a friend. I had these two friends of mine who used to play Call of Duty on their phones. They'd play against each other, and they're very into it. And I said I'll give it a try. And so what I actually did, I downloaded it onto my iPad, and you can connect a game controller to your iPad, via Bluetooth. And so when you're playing with a PlayStation or an Xbox controller and an iPad, it's basically not identical, but it's pretty close to the console. Because nowadays the iPads that are coming out and the tablets and the phones that are coming out are super powerful to the point where they can run these games very smoothly, and it really is almost indistinguishable from a console experience.
Yeah, I think the only game that I play on the iPad or the iPhone is I think it's made by Game Love. I forgot the name. Asphalt, maybe it's called, a racing game.
Okay,
and I was really impressed. I was really impressed because I don't usually use my phone to play games. I generally don't play much games, to be honest. But I was okay, this looks really cool. I don't know. Maybe we're gonna see a switch. This year, last year, we saw a big change in terms of AAA and AA. Most of the AAA games didn't hit the bar, let's say. And the most successful ones were AA, right? Because I think people are getting tired of these AAA games being boring, soulless, just for the money, full of light service. And then I
saw a thing that, I don't know if this is true or not, but I saw an article recently that said that the new GTA game that's coming out soon, that's been getting a lot of hype, there's an article saying that they're talking about charging $100 for the game, which is crazy. Already $60 I thought was a lot for games. But that was the kind of standard. So if they start raising it to $100 for a AAA game, and especially if they raise the price but don't raise the quality, right? Not just because I think a lot of these companies think raising the quality means raising the graphics and raising the visuals, right? But I think a lot of people want a good story. I know for myself, I don't play a lot of games, but the games that I enjoy the most are games with good stories. You
Yep.
know, like I love the Spider-Man games on PlayStation. I love those games. They're so much fun, and they have a great story. Or The Last of Us is another great example. It had a great story. You know, but if you're kind of putting out games that are kind of the story's kind of mediocre, but has really cool graphics, you know, I don't know. Maybe you could get some people to come into it, but you're not gonna create something that's really impactful, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the market saturation is what we're seeing, right? There's so many, how many copies are out there of like Fortnite, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And there is only this certain amount of people that play this game. So I don't know. I think like that's what we see in all this plus COVID, that hit really
yeah,
hard and the
yeah,
economy. Like, I do think like games like GTA that takes like 10 years to make. I
yeah.
think if they say, okay, we're gonna charge $100, which I don't agree fully. Okay, makes sense, right? When you spend like, I don't know, I think in the previous GTA they spent like almost 500 million, and on this one
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna spend like over 1 billion. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
including marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a lot of money,
Yeah.
and I get it, but you're not gonna charge me $100 for the newest Call of Duty.
Right.
No,
The problem is once one game starts doing
they
it,
do
everyone
it.
else is going to do it also, and then it becomes a new standard.
Exactly.
And then I think the fatigue that people are experiencing now is just going to get more. So I'm paying $100 for this game that's subpar. You know, like I think that's kind of inevitable. But in some ways that kind of helps. Like you're saying, it helps the double A games because then they can come along and they can kind of put out really high quality games. And again,
Yes,
high quality story, even if the
with
graphics
heart
aren't
as
cutting
well.
edge, right? With heart, exactly. And charge half the price, and all of a sudden run away. Like you see this like with I know it's a little bit controversial this game, but Pocket Pair, they put out Pal World, right?
Oh yes,
And and
yeah.
yeah, and it wasn't a huge budget game. It was kind of like an indie sort of game, hugely successful because it was a really solid game. It was really good, fun gameplay. I played it for a while, and it got to the point. My wife told me, she's like, "You gotta stop playing," because I got so addicted to it. I'd be up till like 2 a.m. playing, and because it was so much fun. It was such an enjoyable experience playing. And I think that just goes to show. Versus, you look at like Pokemon, right, which is like everyone like kind of draws
Yeah.
a comparison between the two. But you look at Pokemon; they're putting out new games fairly frequently. But then the games they're putting out, at
It's
the
just the
last
same.
right, it's the same. People have been complaining; they've been very buggy, and they're not innovating. They're not pushing boundaries at all. They're kind of like, we have this formula, it works, so let's just put out another one, and people will eat it up because they love our IP. And
Yep.
like that works for a certain amount of time, and it works for a certain demographic. But at a certain point, if you're not creating new, innovative content that's enjoyable to play, you're losing the whole thing that made it great in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, we used to play games to have fun or like to explore stories, right? And nowadays feels like they're just copying each other. And I mean,
Yeah,
a lot of these are issues as well regarding people like to put the money, like stockholders and all this
yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
shareholders.
yeah,
But like, I mean, that's why we see a lot of remakes and stuff like that, right? Because people, when you put an interesting idea down and something different, then there's no money to back it up. Like
right,
there's no, oh, this is risky,
right,
like new idea. No. Show me a remake of like, I don't
right,
know. Resident Evil 4 has been remade so many times. Like you can play it on your
yeah,
phone, on PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, probably PlayStation 5. I mean, I love that game, by the way. But yeah, they'd rather do this, which I'm really happy by the way. I think they're announcing like a new Silent Hill, like they announced like last
hmm
year, which I'm
hmm
really happy that they are taking risk. And I hope that people also, when developers do this stuff, they support them, because also there are some companies that try to do that and then they don't make the numbers. So I think
yeah,
like also the people playing this type of games should support them as well.
yeah,
I mean, again, that also depends on if the game is actually good, but like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like you cannot compare a $20, $30 game with like 70 or 100 that you said
right,
before.
right,
And there, I mean, I know that, I mean, just to play devil's advocate in this case, how they say the expression, right? Like the prices for video games haven't changed in 20 years or something like that, right? They have kept the same. So you count inflation, it kind of does make sense. I increase the
yeah,
price,
yeah,
but I think what needs to happen is maybe include another category for like games like GTA,
yeah,
like
yeah,
because that's a different. How many hours is that game gonna give you, right? Like
right,
compared to, I don't know, Call of Duty that doesn't include like a campaign mode,
right,
like
right,
I mean, or like
yeah, and then
FIFA or those games that are just
right.
yeah,
It's
go ahead.
it's a little I was gonna say, it's a little unfortunate. Like obviously, I understand from an economic standpoint. You want to maximize the profits, and I'm not even saying I'm not hating on these things. I get it, right? These games are very expensive to make, and you want to make your money back and then some, right? If you want to have a profitable game company, but I think I feel a lot of the magic, like when games, the game industry is not very old, right? I mean, how long have video games been around for? And when they first started, it was people who were doing it because they loved it, right? They were doing it for the love of the craft, and maybe it wasn't as profitable, but that wasn't the focus. Right? The focus was let's make really great products, And it's really sad when something the same thing happens with Apple with their products, like. The original, when the iPhone came out, it was revolutionary. It was game changing, right? And at a certain point, it switched from pushing boundaries and creating really great new products to just, we have this formula that works for us. We'll tweak it a little bit, make it a little bit better, and push it out because it's lower risk, right? And we're guaranteed to get X amount of profit. And again, I understand from an economic standpoint why that's how you want to run your business, but when you're dealing with something that's made by artists, right? And you're pushing it to not, I guess the consumers aren't just artists, but still it's kind of sad to see the soul sucked out of these things.
Yeah, because you play games to have fun, you get plays to get like a cool story. I don't know, like be inspired. Like me as a kid, I used to play more than I play now because I think also when you get into this industry, you kind of lose the appetite, let's say, to play games. But I mean, I don't know, God of War, even though I was underage, I think, because I was like 15, 16 when I started playing, and that game is 18. But like those games, or like Resident Evil, or like Silent Hill, I really was into those games, and they shaped the way you see stuff. Same with movies, right? I think the stuff that you get feed, and then it boosts your creativity. I don't know. And when you have these games, they don't feed me like anything, it's just like it's like they just want zombies playing a game for the sake of playing, with no I don't know, you know this game called The Finals? No. It's made by some ex-employees. I mean, the company was funded by some ex-DICE employees that work on Battlefield, and they made this company called Embark Studios, which is in Sweden, and they made this game called The Finals, and it's so fun. I mean, I played it like a year ago when it came out, and it was really fun because it was something different. It felt more arcadey. It was like fast-paced, like really fun, and people like that. I mean, and it shows, right? Because the game is doing well, and I don't know, I think you need to, how do you say it? I guess it's money talks, but like what you said with the iPhones, right? I don't want an iPhone every year. Make it every 2 years.
Right.
I don't need to
Take
have
your
the
time,
iPhone,
but make it quality.
Yeah, I don't want rinse and repeat. I don't want the same iPhone with like an extra color. No. Take 2 years, make actually good, and people would buy it. It's consumers' fault, right? Because if people keep buying them, right? It's like it's like even both parties.
Yeah.
But yeah, in that sense, you're right. I hope we see a change next year. I do think we're gonna see a boom, like a race in like AA studios, because they're making games that people enjoy, and if I want to play a game, I want to play a game for study, and because I want to have fun with my friends, like co-op and stuff like that. And if you can nail that,
Right. No, for sure. And there are definitely games out there that kind of have tapped into a formula that works. And again, I'm not hating on these things, but again, it goes back to this idea of like the passion and love that goes into it is what you get out of it, and it's just there. It's unfortunate when that kind of, when it loses that spark and that magic,
Yeah, I haven't played this game, but I know it did really well. It's called Baldur's Gate, I think, 3.
Yeah, I haven't played it, but everyone was talking about it.
It's really good, and you can see, because I was talking to friends and stuff like that, and they said you can see that they put their heart into this game. And that shows, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a really polished game. Like, I don't know, the Metro Saga is like a game made by Ukrainian company, and it's really, I played them like last year to have because I really wanted to see that environment for like a project that I wanted to do. And then they're really fun. Like you can see that even they're small studios, they put the heart into it. You have a nice product.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So just getting back to a bit about your career and your journey.
Yes.
so you've been doing this it sounds like you've been doing it, even though not in a professional capacity, but you've been doing it for a while in terms of, studying, and because you said you've been doing it for 2.5 years. So, and you went to university, how long ago was that?
3 years. In the UK, undergraduate degrees are 3 years plus 1 year of studying with mentorships plus 2.5 years of in total 6.5 years since I've been exposed to but the actual experience in working for an IP, professional IP that I get paid, 2.5 years, yes.
Nice. So do you find that your kind of style has changed over that time, or do you feel, obviously you're still kind of not early on in your career, but you're still young and
Yeah.
you only been doing it for a couple of years. But do you find that you kind of shifted in your style at all, or do you think it's kind of you're still discovering?
I think like more than style because it's like I think like that's regard people that have style is mostly like artists with a lot of experience, right? And they can like,
Right,
oh, I
right,
see this and they can recognize it.
right.
I would say what had changed for me is more about what I like or what I like to build or what I like to do, right? As I said, like really like characters as well when I studied at
Mm-hmm.
uni, and then I realized, okay, this is not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of style, no. I mean, also right now, the idea is like to have a coherent quality, so like Game
Yeah,
Studio C, and they can replicate this, right? Because I'm
yeah,
trying to copy that, which
yeah,
is a lot of 3D and to the exploration for the early stages,
yeah.
and
So
that's what.
you do
Hmm.
mostly 2D, or do you
Oh no,
dabble at all in 3D?
I think it's mostly 3D to get the final image, but I'm trying with my projects that you can, I mean, see on the art station. I don't think I mean, the previous stuff that I posted, which is like a project that I got a lot of like good like positive feedback from people,
Yeah.
like, oh, I really love this game, the idea and stuff like that. I try to explore with sketches a lot on that one
Oh, nice. So
because I
what?
feel. Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask what like softwares are you using
Oh,
primarily?
mainly Photoshop for like 2D stuff, line art and stuff like that. I don't
Yeah.
paint in Photoshop, just like line art. And then for exploring the blockouts and stuff like that, design and polishing the image, 3D Blender.
Okay.
That,
So like the things in your portfolio, that's mostly Blender. That's mostly done in Blender.
Photoshop, Blender, and then a bit of like ZBrush as well.
Okay, cool. So what's kind of your like what's your process like from
Oh,
concept through?
okay. We can. I think it depends of the what I'm doing, interior, exterior. Like it depends. But like
Yeah.
mostly is like a first really rough sketches in Photoshop. Once I have my mood board and my references, really rough sketches, trying to put it down, the brief or like the idea. Then I go into 3D Blender. I block out the area and I try to focus on shapes to see what it works, what it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Then I go back to Photoshop. I do line art and then okay, maybe this can go like this, la la la. Because Photoshop, I mean, 2D gives you the freedom of like having not you don't follow like polys,
Yeah.
you have the freedom
Yeah.
of the gesture.
Yeah.
So it's like a go back and forward, back and forward until
Yeah.
I get like something solid. Let's say, I mean solid, like a thumbnail, and then I do
Mm-hmm.
four, and then those are the explorations. Once I have that, I take the one that the client likes or the one that I like if it's a personal project, and then I go back to Photoshop or 3D and then push it to get the final design, right? So
So
it's
the final product
mm,
is being kind of rendered in 3D, and then you go bring it to Photoshop and color over
yes,
it, do the
yes.
touch ups and such.
Photo
Uh,
machine and paint over. Yes, to fix
oh,
base
very nice.
because when you I mean I'm not a 3D artist as like I don't do clean I don't know I mean I kind of do
Topology and
I mean to be honest I do kind of try because it's easier to do textures but my stuff is not getting ready, let's say.
right, right,
So I do have to go and paint because I
right.
also have to rig my characters and stuff like that. So you see like a weird shoulder, so I
Uh-huh.
need to go and paint that stuff on top of
Yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff. Add the VFX as well, which is in Photoshop. I like to add the VFX and then paint over or like use line art to do some stuff because you
yeah.
cannot do all the detail in 3D. If you do all the detail in 3D, it's gonna take you way longer,
Right,
and you
right,
don't have that time in a company, right? When you have like
right,
a week to do the thing.
right.
So it's better to go to Photoshop and also it's good to direct the viewer when I'm making an image. I try to direct the viewer where I want them to go because I mean, how can I do that, right? I mean, I don't know, contrast or detail, right? Because if I have the whole image has detail, it's like, okay, where do I look
Yeah,
at, right?
right, right.
But if you have certain areas with detail or like sharp, like contrast and stuff like that, then okay, there is areas where your eye can rest and then areas where you focus. So
Yeah,
that's what I try to think as well that, again, this changes depending what you're doing. If you want to do just a piece that is going to be seen by a 3D artist and that need to build this, then it's a different approach. And need to use different lighting. It has to be clear for them to see the textures, the shapes, and everything.
yeah.
So it depends.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, what makes like a good environment design? What are some of the things that you look for, to try and nail to make something that you're really proud of? That you walk away you're like that's a good design.
I will say, if we're focusing on video games, right? So it
Hmm.
looks like a livable place, not like in terms of like there's people there, but it looks like okay, this has a story to tell. Like
Mm.
okay, I can see what's going on here, or I see what happened here. That's really good because I think nowadays people have access to 3D and then they buy assets and stuff like that, and they use those assets and they feel like generic because they're not creating something, right? Let's
Mm.
say if I want to have something more regional, right? Or like something cooler, let's say from my subjective view of what cool is, then I
Yeah.
will design it and then I will put that and then I will try to put some storytelling. And I think that's the difference of what makes a design cool and what not. So yeah, the creativity behind the idea
Yeah.
and the storytelling that you can, convey there in the
Yeah.
in the design.
So you were talking about before about how you like to do props. So are you kind of designing your own props and then you use those props in your environments? Is that kind of
Yes.
the idea?
Yeah,
Very
which
cool.
is which is like actually for the project that my most recent project, which is a AR VR arena in Valencia. I
Cool.
designed everything except the
Very nice.
trees, which I just got from a
Yeah,
website,
yeah.
but I changed it then a little bit. But
Yeah.
that was me being stubborn because I said, you know what? I'm gonna design everything, and it took me a while because
Yeah.
it's a lot of props and it's a massive area. But it's
Are
fun. I
your
mean,
are your
uh,
props 3D or 2D?
oh, I do 2D first to get like a dia,
Yeah.
and then 3D. And then I do just the
Very cool.
blockout. If it's in the background, I just do like a rough blockout. If it's closer to the camera, I put more effort into it.
Hmm.
And then I have some May Hero props, which are, I think, a drone, like a juice vending machine, like an orange juice vending machine, and then a barricade. And those
Uh-huh.
ones have a lot of work. The other ones don't have much work compared to
Yeah,
those
yeah.
ones.
All right. It really depends on kind of what they're being used for. You know, if it's something that's in a distance versus something that you really kind of get up close and personal with, you
Yep.
definitely have a different approach to those. Oh, very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Also, if the player is going to interact with those props, they need to have
Right.
they need to have that work. You need to be able to see it because in a
Yeah.
game, when you're playing a game, you're not going to have an arrow pointing. I mean, maybe you have
Right.
in some easy games, right? But it's like, oh, you do this way with an arrow
Right.
pointing. No, when you see it, you need to see, oh, okay, this is what
This is
this
something I need to
does.
interact with. Yeah. So what are some
Exactly.
ways that you kind of can give that message over without being too obvious?
I think it depends on the prop, right? Again, but like if it's like saying human scale, and I mean I like sci-fi, so you can have like areas where the player can grab, so you can have like some handles or stuff like
Hmm.
that, or you want to differentiate that from the rest, so people know that they have to interact with that. You can change the color, make it more shiny, stuff like that. I mean some games have really obvious areas where they paint yellow.
Mm.
To guide the character that they need to go that way or like they
Mm.
need to interact with that, but yeah, just making something, or I mean I don't know, like putting a bit more of design into that. I know design is like a really open idea, but it's
Yeah,
more like
yeah.
thinking about like how do the player interacts with it, and it depends on the prop again. It's like when you open a door, right? You know that you can open this door because it has a handle. So
Right.
if you didn't have a handle, you wouldn't try to open it, right?
Right. Right.
That's kind of the idea
So you
behind it.
put these kind of visual cues that they could pick up and be like, "Oh, this must be something I could do something with."
Yeah. For example, I did a barricade and I wanted the player to interact with the barricade. So what did I put? It's like a terminal center in the barricade, so players can
Hmm.
like use it to, I don't know, change stuff in the stats in their. I mean, it's like a made up game, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like there is a keyboard and it's easy to see, and I made it a bit bigger so it's actually visible. So
Mm.
if the player is seeing that, I can interact with this, you know?
Uh-huh. Very
So those
cool.
visual cues, yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah,
Thank
environment
you.
art for me is one thing that I've always struggled with. You know, like I gravitate towards characters and you know that type of thing. It's more my I guess specialty. But
Hmm.
environments I've tried, you know, especially when I was learning, you know, basic kind of the foundational skills in 2D, did some environment work. And for me, I don't know, environments are very, very challenging because there's like I said before, you're thinking on a different scale, and so you
Yeah.
have to take into account kind of you know telling a story in a you know when you're dealing just like telling when you want to tell a story with just a character, it's a lot simpler,
Yeah.
right? When you deal with an environment, you want to tell a nice story. You know, you want to guide the eye to have it kind of go around. Also for me, like also you know, let's say like in photography, right?
Hmm.
I find landscapes are a lot more tricky to nail than portraits, you know, because when you're just dealing with a singular focus, it's easy, you know, okay, just focus on this thing, put, you know, whatever. With when you're dealing on this big picture, it's really obviously an art form. All of it's an art form, but it's a
Yeah.
really a different art form in the sense of, you know, guiding the eye just so and you know when you have a good environment it really shows. I mean it makes all the difference, you know, like a good
Yeah.
environment versus a poorly done environment. You know it's
It, it It's tricky. I mean, not gonna lie, it's even tricky. Like when you have like a big scene. I think when I was working in my previous company, I was given like a task of design like a massive area of the map. Let's say 1/3 of the map, and I
yeah
was like, okay, I was overwhelmed, right? But then the way I approach it is like you just imagine it's a Minecraft server or whatever. You just do
yeah
cubes and stuff, putting stuff
yeah
together. So you go from big to small, like
right
really simple ideas, and that's the way I tackle them, and I try to tackle them because it's easier. Unless you have something like a room is much easier because it's something small. There is a lot of
yeah
constraints. But if it's a big area, I will definitely try to go from big to small and then try to just block stuff out and don't focus. And if you're really struggling, let's say if I'm really struggling with like a big piece, I'll try to do something small in that area. And then it's like,
Mm.
okay, if this looks like this, then maybe I can get an idea how the rest
Mm.
is going to look like, right?
Interesting. Kind of work
And
your way out.
yeah, also when you see gains, usually like, I mean, I did this big environment because it was just me. But if it was a team, it will be 3 more concept
Right.
artists,
Right. Which you
So
bounce ideas off each other, and
yeah, and also
yeah,
people,
definitely.
someone will focus on the props, some will focus on the building, some will focus on the layout, so characters. So it's like it's different. When you're
Yeah.
doing a personal project, also you try to push as much as you can. So of course you need to know how to handle a scene like that, right? But like, yeah, that's the kind of the idea
Yeah.
how I tackle them.
Yeah. Is there a specific genre? You've been talking about sci-fi a lot. Is that kind of your
Yeah,
go-to,
I really
your
like
genre of
sci-fi.
choice?
Yes, but like to be honest, I trying to I mean I like sci-fi and a bit of fantasy mixed with sci-fi, like in
Hmm.
Warhammer. Uh, but I'm trying to widen my portfolio as well to have different genres because if I wanna try to stay in Europe, right? Most of the companies in Europe work with fantasy, you know?
Mm.
So that's why I've been trying now for my next project, I'm trying to mix a bit of fantasy with sci-fi, but still like I'm not just gonna go for medieval or fantasy. No, I wanna mix it with what I like, which is sci-fi.
Uh-huh.
Because at the end of the day, if I just do that stuff like medieval or like, I mean, by the way, if people love that, don't have anything against that.
Right.
It's just like suggestive, what I
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
And if I get a job doing that, I'm gonna get bored, like I'm gonna
Right.
get like burnout because it's like, oh, I have to
Right.
do this,
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, sci-fi. I love sci-fi movies as well. I mean, my favorite movie is Interstellar. I love
Nice.
Dune. I love I don't know if you know the book saga called Hyperion, which is sci-fi as well. I
Yeah.
love that.
Sure. I only read the first one. I haven't read because
Oh,
how many books are there? Is it?
4.
It's four in total.
Yeah, 4 in
So I'll
total.
tell you, I read the first one not too long ago. I read it maybe 6 months ago,
Hmm.
if not sooner. It was excellent, really good. But then I finished the first one, and I felt the first one finished on a really great note
Yeah.
that I didn't want to read the next one, like because I almost felt that the first one was like so well completed that I don't want to. I don't know. You can tell me if you read the books that I feel like if I read the next one and it's not as good and kind of doesn't carry the story well, then I kind of would be disappointed. You
I
know?
think it depends on what you like. I think some people really like the stories, because the first book, I mean, this is no spoiler. The first book is more about like 7 pilgrims that go to a
Right.
place, and each one of them they tell the story.
Yeah.
So,
Somebody
but
described it to me. He said it's like the Canterbury Tales. That's how he
yes,
described it.
yeah,
Yeah.
like they tell these tales, right? But the next book it actually covers what happens.
Uh-huh.
So I liked it. I mean, I liked the whole saga. The ending was a bit like, okay, not because it's bad, but it's like, okay, I just don't
Yeah.
want to give spoilers. But and also I think that the last book could have removed like 200 pages, and it still will
Mm.
be good. It was a bit
Yeah.
too long,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it. I mean, it was really cool, and I hope one day they make like the TV series or something, because I don't want
Yeah.
to see them as movies, because movies usually butcher
Right.
because
Right.
they try to put
They
everything in
gotta
it.
cram it into 2 hours or whatever. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
imagine the first book could be easily each tale is a
Its
chapter.
own episode. Yeah.
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 So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I
For
mean,
sure.
going back to what you said, yeah, like sci-fi.
Sci-fi.
I mean, Dune, it's insane as well.
Did you read the Dune books?
Yeah, I the first one. I need to read the next ones,
Oh, you
but
only read the first one?
yeah, I only read the first one.
Dude, you gotta finish the series.
Yeah. Actually, I think I recently bought the second and the third of my book, so I need to
Nice.
give them. I need to give
Nice.
them a real because I'm really into that.
Yeah. The book number was it? Book number 4, I think. God Emperor of Dune is one of my favorite books of all time. It's so good. It was so good. I love that book.
Okay,
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
forward to
highly
read it.
recommend. I
will.
found for me at least, maybe some people don't agree with this. I found the first 3 books to be like slower, and
Mhm.
then the last 3 I thought were like where it like really picked up and like really got interesting. For my taste, obviously everyone has their own taste, but that
Mhm.
was like in my opinion. I like the last 3 books better than the first 3. I didn't even read any of the stuff by Brian Herbert, his son. I just read the Frank Herbert, and again,
Oh yeah,
the same thing as the Hyperion. I was like, this is a great story. I love how this played out. I don't need to milk it till it has nothing left to give, because then I
Yeah.
think that kind of, like what we were saying before with the same thing with the games, kind of sucks the life out of it. If
Yep.
it's, if you just kind of try and squeeze it, like sometimes, you gotta
Just
know
let
when to
it
stop.
let it be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
in Hyperion it does, because the guy does bring really good ideas, which I think are really hard to portray in digital media, to be honest.
Yeah.
But once you see that, it's like, okay, this is, I mean, like
Yeah.
the Yggdrasil, right? I don't know if you remember the Yggdrasil being like a
Uh-huh.
massive tree, spaceship tree that
Yeah,
is like
yeah.
alive, and then you have massive leaves that are the size of cities. Like that idea, trying to portray that into like
Right.
a, right? That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it's mostly, I mean, also when I read, I'm trying to read more books to get more inspiration from that media because I think like everything nowadays is from Pinterest. I mean, I use Pinterest a lot, or Pinterest or Google, right? And it's like,
Yeah, for
okay, if
sure.
I want to put something different there for my concepts, right? I need to try to, use
Yeah.
different, or like buying
Yeah.
books, buying really old books where those photos are not in the internet is like, okay, I can get inspiration from this.
Right, for sure. For sure. Let me ask you this, maybe it's like kind of a basic question, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Hmm.
What makes a difference between like a sci-fi versus a fantasy environment? What are some things that you would take into consideration? Obviously, spaceships aside, and
Yeah.
but just in general, kind of the general vibe. What would you say are some of the big differences
Where do you
design
draw the
wise?
line, right? I think the fantasy uses magic in my head. Like when I picture fantasy, it's like, okay, they use magic and they use more like not advanced technology. I mean, maybe because Destiny is sci-fi mixed with fantasy, right? Uh,
Right.
but like when I think of fantasy, I feel like I think of like something in the future, right? Or like
Yeah.
not too far into the future with like certain stuff that doesn't exist or the way they do. I don't know, the game Star Citizen? It's
No.
like a big game. I mean, it's not like a. I mean, maybe people are gonna be angry at me. It's not. I don't think it's a game I will play, but it's a game that we'll look at. I looked at
Mm.
because it has cool designs, right? And
Hmm.
when you think of, oh, how this will look like in 100 years or like 200 years or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then fantasy. When I think of fantasy, I think more like The Witcher. Like oh,
Right.
this
Right.
environment with creatures, like magic and stuff like that.
Right. So,
That's how
so
I
my,
see
my
it.
question is, let's
Hmm.
say again, strictly from an environment standpoint, right? If you
Hmm.
remove the whatever the guns, let's say, and you remove the wizards, just focusing on the environment, right? Because when you look at a fantasy environment and you look at a
Hmm.
sci-fi environment, you could tell right away what you're looking at. You can tell this is fantasy, this is sci-fi. So I'm curious to hear from you, like, what do you think when you're designing that environment? What are some things that you think differentiate them?
I will say, if we go for the stereotypes, usually, as we mentioned before, fantasy is usually done in the past, right?
Right.
Like stuff that has already happened, not society that already happened, medieval or like I don't know. I mean, if we have sci-fi. I mean, no, that's different. I don't know, even vampires, which like maybe something more like 1800s and stuff like that, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think that's fantasy in my head. That's the way I see it. Like, okay, we have these elements that are more medieval, that are in the past, or like maybe it's modern, but they use again. I know you remove the magic factor, like, but that's the way I see it. Where
Yeah.
there's like, oh, maybe like cool shapes, right? When you see fantasy, you see like really cool like push forms with like, I don't know, like normal materials. But when I
Right.
see sci-fi, I see maybe like okay, metal,
Mm.
concrete, brutalism,
Yeah.
like a lot of like, I mean, not holograms because that's like it's a cheap sci-fi, but you see
Yeah.
panels, right? People interacting with stuff. It could be
Yeah.
tactic or digital. So
Yeah.
that's where I draw the differentiation between them.
Yeah.
In my case, right?
Yeah. No, it's funny. It's funny that these things have gotten so compartmentalized, where it's like, all sci-fi is very metal, very, like you're saying, brutalism, and then all fantasy is medieval.
Yep.
And it's funny that it's kind of become that is the standard. Like you tell, but I wonder, and obviously there are some examples where they kind of like push it. For example, like the whole steampunk thing, right?
Yes.
That kind of is its own genre that kind of occupies somewhere in between the two. It's cool when you kind of have these things that are different, that are not what you've already seen before, because I think, it can get tired very quickly when you kind of see the same thing, reused over and over and over again.
Exactly. That's why, like with projects, you try to. I mean, it's not like my ideas are super original because I think also like trying to come up with super creative original ideas is really difficult. Unless
Yeah, yeah,
otherwise, everyone will be doing that, right? But
right.
you try to push it. Like for my previous project, I wanted to have something that it was inspired on places or events that I've been to, right? So I went to Valencia last summer. I have a really good time, and I went to a Red Bull event there, right?
Hmm.
Event. So I was there. When I was there, it's like, wait a minute, I can do a project because I was I really used to be into a Battlefield. So I said,
Mm.
okay, I want to do a shooter based in Valencia because I like the city, but with a twist, right? The twist will be like, okay, what if they are playing AR mixed with VR like, but in the exterior
Hmm.
instead of like, and that's how the idea came out, right? So I think like when you're trying to do something new, you try to grab stuff from
Yeah.
like, to make something more original,
Yeah. Yeah.
mixing stuff. I don't know. I mean, you cannot mix Vikings are and like I don't know, like cowboys, right? Because I don't think it doesn't match. But maybe you
Right.
can
Right.
say how this. Imagine the Vikings didn't actually didn't stop existing. I mean, I don't know what is the
Yeah. Yeah.
actual terminology for that. But like, imagine if we still have Vikings nowadays and in the future, how they will look like. Do they have
Yeah.
spaceships that resemble that? I think that's putting a bit more
Mm.
into effort. Also,
Yeah. Yeah.
Cyberpunk, which is gonna be my plan for the next project after they
Uh-huh.
finish the one that I'm currently doing. Cyberpunk is always done in Japan, always.
Interesting.
So okay, what could be an interesting twist to do Cyberpunk?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a
Like
friend that
cyberpunk in a different country.
yeah, I have a friend that really pushes this. I mean, his name is Shenlan. He really pushes his, let's say, his creativity. He was thinking, okay, he was saying people always do a cyberpunk like, ninjas and stuff like that. But what about
Yeah.
doing how do you call it in English? Like the person that cleans the streets and stuff like that, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
What if that is cyberpunk? So he did
Uh-huh.
some designs showing how that person will look like, but cyberpunk. And
Uh-huh.
that's creative. That's really creative. He's
Yeah.
super creative.
Yeah.
So, I mean, trying to give it a twist, trying to
Right.
do. I think if I have to tell people now, let's say I'm mentoring some people now, right? And I'm trying to tell them, okay, now there's a lot of people with really good technical skills. So what makes you different?
Hmm.
Creativity and the idea. So that's where
Yeah.
you need
Right.
to,
Right.
push it.
Ideas. I think ideas are the most valuable thing, especially as we enter, the era of AI. And because
Yeah.
all the AI stuff, it's not AI. The thing that AI lacks now, and I don't know if it'll ever will get, is the ability to be creative. It's kind of just it's like a blender of all kind of what exists and kind of spits out more of
Yeah,
the same.
regurgitating the same
Right,
stuff.
right. Whereas so I think ideas are really the most valuable thing that an artist can bring to the table, especially for a designer. For 100%.
Yeah, I mean that's where because I mean I have dealt with AI as well. I mean I just don't. I'm not against the tech and against the way it was trained, which
Yeah.
copyright of
Right.
many
Right.
just not artists I mean like concept artists, but like
Right.
anyone, right?
Right. Right.
Illustration, music, musicians, everything. But
Right.
like AI cannot, let's say, it can give like it can give you a general image, but it cannot solve problems or it cannot
Right.
be art
Right.
directed. Because I've been in situations where like there is this AI and the client tells me, okay, we cannot make AI do these changes because
Yeah.
it can't.
Right, I mean,
So
it doesn't understand what it's looking at. That's another problem, is that it doesn't
yeah,
have a fundamental understanding of whatever. Let's say it's making a car. It doesn't understand that this is a car and I'm making a car, right? It's just taking images and, like you said, regurgitating,
exactly.
and yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
also I think what it struggled the most is conveying that feeling of functionality, which is like what actual concept art is about. Showing this, creating designs and functionality, like okay,
yeah,
this door opens like this, because
right,
maybe it gives you a handle, and the door opens like this, but the handle is like this. It doesn't make
right.
sense. Why do you put it there?
That was one of the I'd say the biggest lessons that I was taught by my mentor. Was the idea of functionality, right? Because so many times you have people who make, let's say, sci-fi, because talking about sci-fi,
hmm
they'll make a spacesuit, whatever, right? And they'll put all these like wires and tubes and all these and buttons, it's like, cause, oh yeah, it looks cool. You kind of throw all this stuff on it. But if you can say, this tube, well, if I point at it and like, okay, what's this tube do? And you're like, I don't know, it's just there because it looks cool. That's not
exactly.
a good design. Like a good design needs to have function.
Yes, or at least fake the function.
Right.
Like
You can make it up. Right. And
yeah. But
it's
like at
part of
least
it. But
fake it. Yeah. If you can see, okay, this is here because it opens but you don't need to design everything inside, right?
right,
As
right,
long as you can pretend or fake
right.
the
And it makes
functionality as
sense. It
well.
has to make sense.
Exactly, makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying AI because now it's getting to the point where it's really hard to differentiate illustration from AI, right? Like I mean actual,
Right.
but
Right.
I mean at least for concept art, right? It's more about the functionality and the art direction. And
Yeah.
again, some people, I'm pretty sure AI is gonna stay. I don't think it's gonna. I mean, I don't think it's gonna take over people's jobs, in my opinion, because it can't do the thing.
Right.
And also, there is a lot of AI prompt artists that have got jobs, and I know personally from some friends that those people got fired because if you use AI and you make a cool image, but you don't have the artistic eye and the experience and the knowledge to
Right.
do the changes or to see the mistakes, There is no point, and these people
Right.
get fired, and it hasn't happened once. It has happened more than once.
Yeah.
People that prompt artists. Again, if people use it, I mean, fair enough. I mean, there is
Yeah.
freedom, they can
Yeah.
do whatever. But I
Yeah.
think like if we are trying to look at the positive side of AI, just to not be so negative about everything, I think it'll be a good idea for people like clients, right? They have like some mood boards and stuff like that, and say, oh, this is what we were
Right.
thinking.
Right.
I mean, as I said before, playing devil's advocate, that expression in
Yeah.
English, I don't think we have an expression like that in Spanish. It's basically to have a different opinion, right? Not to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
in
Right.
favor.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah. Definitely. Just back on the topic of you're talking about creativity,
yeah,
I'm going to give
yeah,
just
yeah.
mention this a little shout out, I guess. Not that he needs it, but I'm going to totally butcher his name. Gendy Tchaikovsky, I think is how you pronounce it. He's a famous animator. I mean, he's worked on a lot of things, but he made a show fairly recently that was really good, really creative, and really like different in my opinion. It was called oh man, what's it? Something Warriors Eternal. I'm drawing a blank on the first word. Oh man, you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen it?
No, I haven't actually seen it. I think the only thing I've seen recently is called Secret Level.
Oh, you saw that? How was it? I didn't watch it.
It was really good. I mean, okay, this is made by artists, like trying to, and I'm not supposed to say bad negative things. No, but like, I think like some episodes are like, and some episodes are really good. So it depends.
It was kind of like each episode was kind of standalone, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's because that you have like 14, 15 minutes to convey. I mean, to show an idea, like to show, okay, this is cool, that story. It's really difficult to finish a story in 15 minutes and tell something good, right? And creative and wow factor.
Yeah.
So some of the episodes, I would say around 40%, 35% of them I liked. The rest are like, okay, like, okay, I watched it,
I found it. It's called Unicorn Warriors Eternal.
Let me look that up really
highly
quickly.
recommend it. It's a really cool show. Very different. It kind of like pulls on a lot of like steampunk themes. That's kind of the backdrop.
Okay.
And kind of some magic. It's really cool and really different. Like I really like his style because he also did Primal. Did you watch Primal? It was on HBO, I think.
No,
it was about the guy and his dinosaur. This guy like this also he's a really like visionary artist.
I'm gonna write this up.
Really does things that are different. Not you're not kind of the same thing you've seen over and over again. And I just wanted to kind of mention that because it's really
no.
Really
I mean,
cool.
I really appreciate also like this type of stuff because like it's really risky to do stuff that is a bit more as we said, right? In games, the same in animation. And there is the as with Secret Level, let's say Arcane, right? Arcane has such a cool art style, right?
Yeah.
And I was reading the news that they said like, oh, it didn't make that much money, and some people were complaining. And the guy said like the developer said, we make League of Legends and we sell skins so we can make stuff like this. We don't make stuff like this to make a lot of money. So it's about the artistic expression,
Yeah.
And then you have TV shows like Arcane that have
and those are the projects that are the best received by the audience because again, going back to where this conversation started, you put the love into it, and people see it and it shines through and it's so good. And okay, so even if you don't get, even if it's not, it's not going to make because what happens is you're definitely selling to a niche market, right? You're selling to people who like this, but the people who like it love it, and
exactly.
it's like that's where it's at. You know what I'm saying? Like, recognize who you're selling to and make something that they're really going to enjoy. And obviously, again, not to take away from the economic standpoint and like the importance of making money. I get all that. Yeah. But again, if you want to really make something that's special, put the love into it. I think that's kind of the...
And people will remember,
right.
There is games that have really cool style. Maybe they don't have the best sales or stuff like that, like Deathloop and stuff like that. Like what are those kind of games? Or like, I forgot the name of this Dishonored, I think. And you remember those games. Or like Bioshock, I think as well.
Yeah.
Because you it's like, oh, this game haven't sold like millions or millions, whatever. But you remember that. Just like you see a thumbnail, a screenshot, you say, oh, this reminds me of that. Like, it's in your head.
Yeah.
That is good,
Yeah.
But I don't remember personally the last Call of Duty games. I mean, I remember the previous ones, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, but the actual one, not the remaster. Or like Battlefield 3, Battlefront. I mean, that's a Star Wars game. But like those type of games you remember because
Yeah.
they're cool, But there are some games that you just play and then you forget. It's like, oh, what was
Yeah.
this game about?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's that feeling.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great place to wrap it up. That's a
Yeah.
good note to end on. Thank you so much for your time. Where can everybody find you online?
Thank you, Mo. I mean, they can find me on Instagram. Well, actually, don't know my my Instagram. I think it's my name, Juan. Let me check it out really quickly. They
All
can find me
right.
on Instagram, RStation, and that's it because I don't like to have too much social media. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
my Instagram is Juan Higuera Gomez. My name, just I
All
made it
right.
easier. And on RStation is the same, Juan Higuera Gomez. People can find me
Perfect.
in those. But yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. I have a
Yeah.
lot of
Thanks for
fun talking
coming
to you.
on. This was a great talk.
Thank you,
Hope to
man.
have you again soon.
Yeah, see you soon. Bye.